Hello and welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. We are your hosts, Vidas
and Ausra.
We've been mastering secrets of organ playing for more than 20 years and sharing them on this blog since 2011.
On this show, which we create from our home in Vilnius, Lithuania, we strive to help you grow in every area of organ playing, including practice, technique, repertoire, sight reading, hymn playing, improvisation, composition, music theory, harmony, and many others.
Our hope is to help you become a complete musician, or what we call as total organist, a program which we have created to help you reach your dreams faster than you would do on your own.
If you are new here, we invite you to subscribe to receive free updates of this blog at organduo.lt. By subscribing, you will also receive free video how to master any organ composition and 10-day organ playing mini course.
And now let's go to the podcast for today. I'm so excited to be able to talk with John Higgins now from Australia, my old friend, and he's been on our show for about maybe 3 times now. So I'm really delighted that we can connect because John has some news to share. Last time we talked, it was a while ago, and he's very busy with raising his family, 3 kids now, and also working in a church, also playing church music, and also doing all kinds of church music related things, which we will talk about today. So thank you so much, John, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Vidas, and it's such an honor to be on this podcast, and I'm just so proud to be one of your students for over 8 years now.
Yeah, I remember that you were in Vilnius, right? I was looking for all the photos from the past and found you playing in Vilnius, and photo with me and Ausra, and we all together spent some times. Your flight was delayed, right? It was a big adventure, and after I think practicing for 7 years, you finally got to play a recital on the largest pipe organ in Lithuania. That was quite an adventure.
Yes, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, uh, and such a wonderful opportunity. I just can't thank you enough for that opportunity, and I'll never forget it. I feel like the organ is part of me, and I feel like you and Ausra are such a huge part of my life as well.
What happened afterwards, John? After you came back to Australia, I know you have very dangerous bushfires in your area, and I hope you will, you know, firefighters will stop them soon. You will get rain. That's my hope for the new year, of course. Um, we'll hope for the much milder climate, so to say. But could you share, John, about your life after you came back to Australia? What have you been up to?
Yes, it's been quite a busy time. So in February of 2019, we had our third son, Isaac. So that was a real joy, and wonderful, just wonderful to see that new little life come into the world. So Eliza, my wife, and I have been quite busy now with training them, and I've continued to develop and grow in my organ playing at our church, St. Andrews in Morwell, where I play on the 1873 Speechley and Ingram pipe organ, which is heritage listed. And it's a wonderful organ to play. And this is coming around to my 3rd year at the church. And I'm starting to get a lot more heavily involved in influencing the music program and expanding my repertoire and improving the hymn playing and things like that.
How can you manage so much activity, so many activities while raising the kids and of course working in another full-time position, right, as your main job? How do you find energy and time in your days? Can you share with us?
It's a very good question. Life gets very busy, and particularly when music's your hobby and not your profession, you have to prioritize having a job so that you can pay the bills, and you need to prioritize looking after your family as well. But I've found, particularly this year, where I've had the least amount of spare time of any year really, that I've just had to be very focused about using every spare minute that's available. So I think one of the big improvements I've made is more focus with my practice. So I'm fairly fortunate with the church music that I'm one of 4 people in the music team. So I only have to play once or twice a month, depending on the roster.
Yeah.
Which is quite good. But I've found that my preparations become a lot more efficient, where sight reading's improved, and my practice this year I've slowed down a lot more, and it's probably taken me a few years to really understand how important your advice was about practicing slowly. So this last year I've practiced the slowest ever. So slow, practicing very, very slowly, and only one line at a time of the hymn, or even less. And I find now that when I look at the 4 hymns, I can usually pick maybe 4 or 5 measures where I know that I'll have problems, and I work on those, and sometimes the rest I don't even spend much time on at all, because it might be very simple parallel 6 or something like that with the same fingering that I just know.
I see. Yeah, I'm really delighted that you can, apply our tips. They really work, and not too many people stay with those tips and through the longer period of time. Sometimes people get discouraged while playing very slowly, right? They want quick results, and when you play one line at a time, very, very carefully, very slowly, you don't feel the improvement right away, right? You have to go back maybe a month later to the old piece that you weren't able to play at that time 1 month ago. And then after this diligent slow practice of different other pieces, you come back to the old music which was virtually inaccessible to you, and you will see that basically your playing has much improved. That's how my best students tell me. Right, I no longer have to do this, no longer have to check myself if I'm doing progress or not. I know I'm practicing them the efficient way, and I'm not feeling anxious about whether or not I should be doing something differently. But for people who are, um, in the earlier stages of their organ playing experience, this sometimes helps them see their practice improvements, over time, going back a month, 3 months, 6 months later to the old music, difficult music, right? And so have you been doing that as well?
Yes, that's a interesting. There's two interesting points you've identified there for real determination. And I think that's one of the hardest things when you're busy with family life and work is it's sometimes it's difficult to stay focused and be disciplined. But I've tried very hard this year, even though I've been busy. I'll always spend, you know, at least 15 minutes practicing a day. I like to try and spend 1 hour, but quite often that hasn't been possible. But sometimes I sit there and I think I'm nearly half asleep just before I go to bed, but I at least do 15 minutes. And it just makes such a big difference because when you miss a day or two, you find you've fallen so much further behind. Even if you're just by doing the 15 minutes, you're staying level. At least you're not going backwards. And then the other point you raised is quite an interesting experience I had where I didn't have as much spare time this year to learn new pieces. So when I played my Christmas recital at Victor Harbour before Christmas, some of the pieces I played were repeats from a few years ago. And I found it was very interesting that when I started practicing those pieces, it was very easy to zone out mentally. You'd start practicing the piece and go, oh, I've seen this before, I've heard it before, and your mind drifts into neutral. And I really had to stop myself and force myself to listen to every single detail and every single aspect. And in some cases, I went back and redid the fingering and pedaling because it wasn't quite working for me, and really had to look at it with a fresh focus.
Right. I remember not long ago, after our Christmas recital with Ausra, we started practicing music for our upcoming recital in Sweden, in Örebro. We will be going there in February. February 9th is the day, and this is music that we played before. Mozart Sonata for four hands, Beethoven's Adagio, Brandenburg Concerto No. 1 by Bach. What else? My own piece, Veni Creator, arranged for organ duet. Then Lithuanian, basically folk songs arranged for organ duet by Kristina Vasiliauskaitė, and some other music as well, to complete 60-minute recital time. And what I noticed that actually we both noticed that we actually could play this recital tomorrow because it's under our fingers. You see, we've been playing this music at least several times publicly, other pieces more than 3 times, maybe 10 times, you know, and uh, it's really easy to refresh. Now Brandenburg Concerto needs a little bit more work because left hand part is complex, and it will take a little bit time to refresh our technique on that. But generally we agreed that yes, we could play it successfully tomorrow. So we were very glad to be able to find that out. And I guess the reason I'm telling you this, John, is because you yourself, when you repeat old music, like in Christmas recital or any other, you know, uh, occasion that you will like to play in the future, I think you will find that it's very nice to repeat your music, and you will find how much you have grown over that period, right? Those old pieces, even though you say it's your mind grows into neutral, yes, but but they are under your fingers, I guess. That's a good thing, right?
Yes, you're right. And because the my Christmas recital was less than 1 week after the 9 lessons and carols service, and I was putting a huge amount of work into the carols service, and I didn't have much time to work on my repertoire for the concert, which was 6 days later. And 2 of those 6 days I had travel in the car, so I only had 3 days of practice, and with some of those pieces I'd played before, that I didn't need to practice a lot on the instrument. I was even doing some mental practice um, of just looking at the scores and visualizing particularly the pedaling, just visualizing how it would go, and thinking about the organ that I would be playing on, and some of the difficulties with it, anticipating the difficulties with that instrument and stop changes and things like that. And it was by far the most successful concert I've had.
Wonderful. So you mentioned visualizing, right? Visualization, the benefits of that. And can you expand on that? What helps you do that, and the reason you're doing that, even if you don't have the access to the real organ?
Yes, when you first introduced me to this concept, I found it was a real struggle because I don't think I had enough organ music and technique. My development wasn't sufficient. But now that I'm a few years down the track and I've learnt quite a few pieces, I've improved my technical skills. Now I'm finding it's more and more beneficial, that because I definitely learn a lot through visual and the feel of how it's going to be, feeling the interval spans on my fingers, or visualizing toe heel or something like that with the pedals, and visualizing the layout of the stops as well, which manual I'm playing on, and that has helped quite a lot.
That's right. When you feel that your mode of thinking and learning is visual, that's very beneficial. Some people are more tactile, some people are more audio related. For example, they can learn out of listening of music to music, right? Music, slowly played music, they can really learn. For example, people with sight problems, who cannot see, right, blind, they learn differently from people who can see, right? And for us, a lot of times this visualization really is helpful, I would say, even if you don't have an access to a real organ, especially then when I travel with my recitals and practice time is limited on an actual organ that I'm going to play. I'm staying in a hotel room, and when everybody else is going around to museums and attractions and sightseeing the city or the town, I'm staying before the recital and visualizing everything that is going to take place, especially if the music is a little bit unfamiliar to me, especially if it's the first time performance on that instrument, right? I need to be extra careful. But also there is another help to me: improvisation. I can be quite relaxed now on many kinds of different instruments, even though they are unfamiliar to me, because I know that whatever happens, if I lose my place, I can improvise and basically continue playing without a glitch. Did you have that experience in your performance career over those couple of years?
I don't believe I'm quite at the stage where I can improvise if I make a mistake. I think in him playing, I'm reasonably good at. I think that particularly this last year, I've made a big improvement with probably avoiding having those mistakes in the first place, and really working on focus and concentration. Because I started noticing a pattern that obviously if you're struggling with your preparation or struggling technically in a certain area, often that can be where the mistakes, that I was going okay with some of the difficult sections, but the mistakes were happening in the easy sections. So I've spent a lot of time this year on trying to train my mind like a muscle to stop having these concentration lapses. And it's quite strange how, well, for me, my brain very easily wanders from the task. And you think that you're concentrating, but you're not really.
You mentioned that you sometimes wander around with your mind, and then even if you can play perfectly and without mistakes in difficult spots, you suddenly, you know, play with mistakes in easy sections, and that's very common, I think, experience for all of us. Whenever I get relaxed or too relaxed at the end of the piece, let's say the last page, and I know the end is coming, and I know this ending very well, and I feel quite secure. At that right moment, I can be sure that extra danger is coming up. I might not make a mistake there, but I've done that. I played with mistakes in the last page, even in the last few measures, in the last line, or even in the last chord. You know, like you sort of are done, but not quite done, and then you miss that last chord, which is quite embarrassing, right? So how do you stay focused until the recital is over?
Definitely is still a work in progress. I think the best piece of advice you gave me that has almost become my mantra now is it's not over until you're in the car park.
Oh, this is not
And
mine.
the last,
You know who said that? This is a famous word line that Marilyn Mason, Professor Marilyn Mason from University of Michigan used to say. It's not over until you are in a parking lot. And I think we've been told about that not directly by her, but by our old professor Pamela Reuter-Finstra at Eastern Michigan University. But I know that's the phrase that Marilyn Mason used in her teaching, and it's really helpful, right?
yes, and in fact, I almost say that it's not over until you've driven out onto the main road, because I've had some amazing conversations with people in the car park, and I'm very conscious of how important it is as an ambassador for the pipe organ, as an ambassador of good music, to be friendly and professional and to show genuine care and interest in other people. And it's amazing in the car park how people are more open and lighter, as in perhaps feel more relaxed to have a real conversation.
Well, yes, that's really helpful to keep in mind. And I think when you're doing this in practice, uh, towards the end of the recital, let's say, or the church service, I think breathing, right? Breathing, staying in that in and out breathing moment and movement is very helpful to keep focusing. You cannot really relax without breathing, and you can't really breathe without relaxing. And it's interesting that when you need to focus, your body needs to be relaxed, not tense, but relaxed, whereas your mind has to be very tense. There is a saying in martial arts circles, that your body has to be relaxed, but your mind has to be on fire, like really extra focused. That's when you are most alert and most engaged and actually ready, whatever comes next. So you mentioned that it's not over until you are in the main road, right? Not only in the parking lot, but even further, right? Because you have to know where you are going afterwards. You have to turn to the right direction, not wander around the maybe the city that you don't know if you are traveling to another city to play a recital. Very good, John. Very good. Um, uh, what about practices on the organ that you are playing? Let's say you were playing in Victor Harbor, right? For Christmas recital. How many hours did you have to prepare there for registration changes and things like that?
Yes, it was. It's quite limited, so probably only 4 hours. So I had 2 hours on one day and 2 hours on another day, the day before. So I do all my registration pre-planned as much as possible. So um, I always make sure that I have the stop list beforehand. Thankfully, I've played there quite a few years now, so I have photos of the organ, I have recordings, and I have quite a good idea of which stops blend with the others. But I still try to have everything written out on a piece of paper, and I sit down, pull out those stops, and I'll just play the main sections, or where there's stop changes, I'll quickly play those to get a sound, to make sure that, for example, there's balance between the two manuals. If there's a solo part on one manual and accompaniment on the other, to make sure that the sounds balance, and make sure that the pedal isn't too heavy or out too lined. I need to spend a few minutes on simplifying it, because on this organ now it's getting quite out of it needs some repairs, and a lot of things aren't, well, quite a few things aren't working as they should. And I found that some of the preset buttons, the thumb pistons, that certain stops aren't popping out that are supposed to, and silly things like when you would press piston number 4 on the great manual, which was the last piston, it would do strange things like bring out the trumpet on the swell when it was only supposed to be affecting great. So sometimes I made assumptions that I could use the preset pistons, and then I found they weren't working. So I'd have to simplify the registration by hand, because it was too big a risk on the piston malfunctioning.
Yeah, it's sometimes unpredictable in old organs, right? Which are not really taken care of properly. stop changes can happen very, very in strange ways, right? Um, so changing them by hand is more actually secure, right? But
Yes.
even then, sometimes you get mixed results. I remember playing organ demonstration in a town called Vidas. That's about maybe 40 kilometers north of Vilnius, or maybe west, northwest of Vilnius, let's say. And the local organist helped me very much because the organ stops were labeled in a wrong way. Only he knew the right disposition of stops and the arrangements of on the organ console. This organ was made by a very amateur organ builder, I think in Soviet times, and where they say flute 4, it might be like principle 16, right? Or a mixture. Where it says a mixture, it can be flute 8, and he knew that I didn't, so he helped me. I told him I need such and such stops or such and such combinations, and he really prepared me in advance, mechanically pulling the stops by hand. That's the best way, I think. And of course, if you improvise, you don't get very upset if it's something uh, out of the ordinary. If you're supposed to play flute 8 and it sounds like a principle, right? You don't get too upset, because you are changing in the moment. You're adapting your music, and that's what I usually do too. So I hope you
Another
will keep improvising too, John.
yes, another interesting topic for discussion, which you might have some wise words, was on this organ. I played Bach's Wacht Acht, BWV 645, I believe,
Yeah.
and as you know, the chorale tune traditionally is played with a trumpet, solo trumpet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And on this particular organ, the console is located a long way from the pipes. And even though it's electric action, the action's very slow and the pipes are very slow to speak. So there's more than a quarter note delay from when you press the key to when you hear the sound.
Oh,
And something else that caused me a great deal of stress was that um, the trumpet stop was much too loud and quite unrefined. But they had the swell has a cornopian stop, which I mixed the cornopian and the oboe together, made quite a nice trumpet sound,
yeah,
much more refined and rich tone. But the problem was that with the slow action and the pipes being slow to speak, that when I was doing the ornamentations and the trills in the chorale tune, the notes were blurring together quite badly, and that was the first time I'd come across that challenge.
mm,
And I think, with the benefit of hindsight, I made the wrong decision because I decided to try and play the trills slower, and I slowed the piece down a little and tried to slow the trills. But I think, with the benefit of hindsight, might have been better to omit the trills completely. But that was quite a shock when you're used to practicing it a certain way with all of the trills, to then have an organ that the action's so slow that you couldn't play that, because I'm used to playing a mechanical action organ at our church, which has beautiful, crisp speech and crisp action, very precise. And going to this electric action with a big sound delay was a nightmare.
We have some organs like that, John, in Lithuania, but they're not usually electric. They usually are pneumatic. And if it's in a good condition, restored condition, then it doesn't have delays. I've heard it from organ builder Gene Bediant that a properly functioning pneumatic action doesn't really give delays. But since the tubes are not maybe well kept, maybe the air pressure is too low there, you get those delays. And what I have noticed in the past that whenever I fight that situation, I get tempo slowing down and down and down. Did you have this kind of situation in your performances?
Yeah, that was a struggle. I was able to keep the tempo moving, but the trills didn't really work at all. And I think with the benefit of hindsight, I think given Vakat Aft is quite a simple hymn tune, I think it still would sound beautiful without the trills, even though the trills are really lovely and add a lot to it. I think having no trills would have been better than them sort of blurring.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Diminishing ornaments might help you focus on the music instead of those details, and those details might slow you down. But the main probably technique in fighting or maybe adjusting to that situation when there is a sound delay is listening, not paying attention to not what is sounding, but what you are actually playing with your fingers, how fast you are depressing the keys. It's like with choir, basically, when you are directing the choir from a distance. Conductor is, let's say, downstairs in the church, and the choir is upstairs, or maybe there are two choirs, one is downstairs and another is upstairs, like polychoral music, and they have to work together at some point. Maybe for people in the middle sitting, this simultaneously syncing sound would be perfect. But the technique is that you have to really look at the director's movements when they conduct 1 2 3 4, or 1 2 3 1 2 3, and in the distance this is still without delays, right? It's not like speed of light. It's not like you are removed from the choir director, into the moon or the sun, when there is a delay in speed of light. But basically, if you imitate those movements and not the sound that the choir is making, then you are okay, right? You follow those movements, 1 2 3 4, for example, and you sing in time with those movements, not in time with, let's say, what another choir is singing, and you're hearing with the sound delays in across the room, right? That's already too late. So that helps a lot to remember when you're playing organs with sound delays as well. Uh, Listening not to the sound, what you hear from the organ, but basically paying attention to your real time movements of the fingers and feet, of course. At first, it's very disturbing. It really
Well, one of
needs much practice on that instrument, but later you will get it little by little.
Yes, no, you've touched on something very important, and I think one of the biggest areas that I've improved this year is I know it sounds so simple, and it's probably my own fault for not tapping into this earlier. but I've really tried to make a commitment this year to most of my practice being with a metronome. So I've downloaded a metronome app onto my phone, which I always have with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very disciplined, and my repertoire for this concert, I did a huge amount of practice with the metronome. And you're exactly right, because I know I don't know if I'm a little bit unusual, because I know that you've said for a long time about the importance of counting and maintaining a steady beat. Unfortunately, I have real trouble trying to count and play at the same time. In fact, I find it almost impossible to sing a hymn while I'm playing. I don't know why, I just have dreadful trouble. I don't know if it's using a different part of my brain, but I find speaking or counting or singing while I'm playing very difficult. I'm working on it, but I found that when I try to count, I thought that I was keeping an even count, but I wasn't. When I was getting to a difficult measure, my counting was actually adjusting to my playing instead of my playing staying the correct tempo. So by having the metronome going on my phone was quite a rude shock at times, where I realized how I was getting off beat.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of the last probably 3 months, I believe there's been a significant improvement. What I found interesting was that your playing sounds so confident.
So you were saying, John, about the importance of counting, right? And you have downloaded the metronome app on your phone. Can you expand a little bit on that? Why is that important for you, and why can't you count without the metronome?
Yes, no, I've for some reason I find it very difficult to um, to speak while I'm playing, or count aloud regularly while I'm playing, or even sing along while I'm playing. I don't know if it's a different part of my brain to what I'm using to play the music. But I found that even though I thought that I was counting even beats, that I was slowing down when I came to difficult measures. And it's been very beneficial using the metronome app, because now I started, and that's made a big difference to my playing. The last 3 months I've been very disciplined with practicing with a metronome, and I was quite surprised. I had a number of people saying to me, your playing sounds so confident now. And yet I didn't feel any more confident in myself. I didn't feel like there was that much difference. But I think I interpreted that as because I'm playing much more evenly and predictably now with a steady tempo, that it comes across to the audience that I'm confident.
Uh-huh. Cannot can't you do that without the metronome? Can't you count with your mouth, let's say?
Yes, so I try and, so when I'm practicing, I'll try and count as well. But I found that just counting aloud, that I wasn't keeping an even beat. That without realizing it, I was slowing down the counting. So when I'm playing for church services or the carol service or recital, I don't have the metronome going then. But I found that after 3 months of doing that, I could almost hear the metronome beat in my head subconsciously, and that helped enormously.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it's very helpful to do that for a long time, because you get you get dependent on that metronome click, right? What I teach my students most of the time is to depend on your internal count. And the reason people cannot count securely and evenly without the metronome is that they don't count out loud. Have you tried to do that? It's difficult, of course, I'm not denying it, but it's the only way to learn how to count without the metronome out loud. It is a challenge, but try to do that aloud. Try to do this, even though it is a challenge, even though you cannot do this correctly at first, but try to persist a little bit. If you persist, the problem will disappear after a while, you know. But you have to, but you have to set yourself for success with this. I don't see, I don't see how metronome using this way is going to help you count without the metronome, you know, in the future. Because
Yeah,
the metronome usually is very helpful for discovering the ideal tempo, right? If it's written in the music, let's say 80 beats per measure per minute, 80, you don't know exactly what it means, so you check, right? Or if it's 120, you check. Or if it's written, let's say moderato, you don't know exactly what moderato means, you check. And you can do that, and it's really helpful to check the tempo. But it's not really helpful to depend on the metronome while playing and develop the sense of independency. It's like walking, it's like taking a walk and learning to walk with the crutch. The crutch will not help you walk, right? It will help you maybe not to fall down, basically. But nobody really learned how to walk with a crutch. You have to probably fall down many times until you get comfortable uh, walking, and then later running. Same thing. I know you're doing this maybe subconsciously out of fear of being wrong, right? But I can probably um, recommend that you would not be afraid of being wrong. It's okay of making those tempo fluctuations at first, but be very precise at counting out loud with your mouth while playing.
yes, no,
Does it make
that's
sense?
very good advice, and
Mhm.
that's something that I'll definitely want to work on in 2020, because I was surprised when I was listening to the metronome. I was surprised at how much my tempo was drifting, even though I didn't realize. And I've since, well, these few months of working that way, um, it's definitely changed the way that I listen to music and listen to myself practicing. So hopefully this will have been a useful short-term learning, sort of recalibration perhaps.
Definitely. Yeah, it will not be easy for you at first, and generally people get discouraged. But I think you have enough perseverance in your practice that you can be successful even while counting out loud without the metronome for a longer period of time, right, John?
Yes, and I think the other thing I learnt was that I probably wasn't breaking down the subdivisions fine enough. So
Uh-huh.
that I needed to break down the counting to the smallest note that was in that measure, or that section that I was playing.
That's very, very helpful. When we have, let's say, smaller note values, let's say 30 seconds or 16 notes, and we cannot really play them fast enough, it's very, very helpful to start counting out loud and breaking down those subdivisions.
Yes, well, it certainly. There was a case where there was some faster notes, and I thought that I was playing them evenly, and someone gave me some advice and said that in an exaggerated way, it sounded like I was playing the first note as a dotted note, and then the rest is like semi-quavers, and I couldn't hear it at first, and I didn't really. They played it for me correctly, and then I recorded myself and went back and listened to it. Then I started to hear this very slight discrepancy, which most people in the congregation or the audience wouldn't hear, but this person had a very skilled ear, and they were able to detect that difference.
Mm-hmm. What about, John, recording yourself? Do you do that?
Yes, yes. So most of the public events that I play for, I record, and sometimes I'll, if I'm preparing for a recital or for a big service or something, I'll take the video camera and set it up on a tripod and take some recordings and then review it.
Aha. So you are recording yourself. What are you doing with those recordings later on?
Occasionally I'll go to, for example, the Christmas concert that I play at Victor Harbour. I think it's the 8th year I've played there now. I've got recordings of all of them except for one, and sometimes when I'm backing up files or things on the computer, I come across them and I open them up and listen to them, and it's sort of quite a mixed feeling. On the one hand, I'm so surprised at how far I've come and how much I've improved and developed, and on the other hand, it's very embarrassing.
Why is that? Why do you feel that it's embarrassing?
Just quite a lot of mistakes, and probably
Yes.
not being able to convey that music to the audience in a way that would really grip them.
I see. But you see, those old recordings are part of your experience, right? Part of your learning experience. You cannot escape playing without mistakes in an old way. When 5 or 10 years from now you get a chance to listen to them, of course they will sound to your ear maybe a little bit immature or insecure, right? And that's okay. I think what's important is that you keep a public record of your experiences, and not only record your results, right? But you record your process. It's very important to record your practice too.
Yes. Yes, I think that's a good idea. Something I could do more this year is record practice.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, do you think that participating in our Secrets of Organ Playing contest would be helpful for you to motivate yourself to record regularly, because we have those weekly entries, right? Every day I announce a phrase of that week, and a person who submits a video has to say that phrase on the video and play whatever they want. You can play a chorale tune, chorale prelude. You can play a hymn um, harmonization, an exercise. You can play a longer piece that you're working on, whatever you feel comfortable the most. And it doesn't have to be played from the first try. You can do multiple takes and maybe select the best one.
Yes, no, it's something I'm very interested in doing, and I certainly had the best intentions this last year of doing that more often. And I sort of started off doing that a few times, and then sort of became quite overwhelmed with keeping up with everything. But I was thinking that um, seeing as I've put so much work in the 9 lessons and carols service, there was 10 Christmas carols and an organ voluntary and a postlude. So there's 12 pieces of music, and I thought that I could play those, say, for the first 12 weeks of this year, because I sort of felt um, a little bit disappointed that I wasn't able to learn new repertoire or things to play because I was too busy this year.
That's right. Well, especially now, because you are playing once a month during the church service, you have an ideal, actually privileged position to record yourself while you're playing live. Let's say, um, me too. Last Sunday I played for a mass at St. John's Church, and they invited me to improvise, and I set up my phone next to the organ console and live streamed my improvisations for prelude, offertory, communion, and postlude. Those were Christmas tunes, basically improvised on the Christmas carols. And the next Sunday, in a few days, I will go there to improvise again, and I will be carrying a camera with me, my phone, and my tripod, and I know I will be recording and live streaming myself. It's very, very important for my own development to keep documenting my own work.
Yes, and I think another really important lesson, which I already knew, but I probably needed to leverage off more, was that there's a saying that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And I think sometimes with our playing, we don't necessarily have the self-awareness to realize where we could improve or where there's small mistakes or things like that. And I think by having the recordings and having other people who you trust, who are experienced, to provide some critiquing and evaluation has been very valuable.
You know, you're right, John. When we are in earlier ages of our development as an organist, we play, and sometimes it seems like okay, right? And even if we record ourselves and listen to that playing, it might sound okay, really, to us, because our taste hasn't developed well. So the method of advancing in this kind of musical taste is really listening to as many musical compositions and performances of our other organists. It's really helpful to listen regularly. It's like if you want to be a writer, right? Create a novel, let's say, you have to read a lot. First of all, you have to read a lot of other writers, and out of reading those works and those books, you get ideas which you can combine in your own book, right? So in the same way with organ playing, if you want to perform well, you have to listen to many musical compositions that other organists are playing, other organists that are maybe better than us, at the better level than us. So that's really helpful advice, I hope, not only to you but people who are in your shoes, who don't know what they don't know. Does it make
Yes,
sense?
and I think the uh, you're exactly right, because particularly for someone like myself who's in a rural area, and I don't have any local organ teachers. Um, you know, I'm so privileged, but at the same time, it's tricky, because I think some of these errors, if I was having a weekly lesson or something like that, you would pick them up and address them. But at the moment, it relies on self-awareness to identify. And what I've found, I've spent many hours watching the recordings on YouTube from King's College, Cambridge, in the UK, of the 9 lessons and carols at King's College. And I'm sure you, as you know, probably one of the most esteemed organists and choir directors there for many years, has left a great legacy and a musical tradition there of Mr. Stephen Cleobury. He's actually passed away, sadly, a few years ago. But there's many recordings on YouTube of spent many hours analysing those, the things like tempo and phrasing, registrations, and it's a wonderful example of the highest degree of musical culture.
Mm-hmm. That's right, John. I'm very glad that you are listening to other people's work, and do that more often. And I hope that this new year will bring you lots of creative outlets, lots of creative ideas, good health to you and your family, of course, and of course, joy in doing what you love. Thank you so much, John. And before we end this conversation, can you share with our listeners uh, what is the best way for our listeners to find out about you more and about your work? Where they could go online?
Yes, probably the best places to catch me are, you can either send me an email, which you're more than welcome to post my email address on the podcast and the blog. And I also have my own YouTube channel called, if you Google John Higgins or um, Hidden Treasures, the
Hidden
YouTube
Treasures.
channel is called Hidden Treasures.
Mm-hmm. Is the name of your YouTube channel Hidden Treasures, or is that the different particular piece that it's called Hidden Treasures?
Yes, that the channel's called Hidden Treasures.
Oh, okay. Channel is called Hidden Treasures. I hope you will send me a link of your channels. I can insert a link into the description of this conversation so that people can click and visit your YouTube channel. Can they write a comment and message you on YouTube as well?
Yes,
Mhm.
that'd be wonderful.
Maybe that would be safer than giving out a private email address online, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So let's
Yes.
encourage. Will they find a lot of your organ performances there, John?
There's only a few videos there at the moment, but I'm hoping to add a lot more this year.
Excellent. And while you do that, share them on Steam. We're very, very grateful for people who do that. We have a small but very vibrant organist community on Steam who participate in our Secrets of Organ Playing contest. So I hope you will rejoin us too.
Yes, and some of your listeners will find when they go to my channel, there's one of the video clips on there is an extract from my DVD which I recorded last year, the improvisation on Judas Maccabeus by George Frederick Handel. And if they enjoy that and they like it, they'd be more than welcome to purchase one of my DVDs.
Exactly. So, John, my final advice is like for everybody. If you want to record a DVD, you can do this in segments, in sections. You can record one piece a week, and later make a compilation of those tracks into a larger collection as a DVD or a CD if you're not willing to do that with video, or even upload them to a site like DistroKid, which distributes to Spotify and other streaming platforms. It can become a like a additional stream of revenue for people. This is really helpful. So because people are streaming nowadays and not necessarily holding and watching physical DVDs, not so much anymore, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
that's right.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. Good luck in your practice. And when you get when you create something new, reach out to me. I will be happy to talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Vidas, and I'm just so proud to be one of your students, and I'm definitely looking forward to this year. I think it's going to be another exciting year of growth in my organ playing, and I am hoping later in the year to release a Christmas album.
Wonderful. This blog is supported by Total Organist, the most comprehensive organ training program online, where you will find courses for every area of organ playing, including technique, practice, sight reading, repertoire playing, hymn playing, improvisation, composition, music theory and harmony, with hundreds of scores and thousands of exercises. Here is what some of the students are saying.
Hugh writes, "The sight reading course has helped me tremendously. Thank you very much for your SS courses and all your help."
Robert writes, I found the fingerings, registration ideas and general comments to be excellent.
John writes, "I have found your download very helpful. It was really excellent. I have watched some of your teaching videos, and when I read your instructions, I tried to imagine you were teaching me. You may feel disappointed that I am 2-3 days behind, but I am a slow learner, and I have committed to taking the time to get it right, as you say. But the other night my wife commented that she had never heard me play such a detailed melody in the left hand so well. My left hand is generally poor."
Robert writes, it has been a great pleasure in my life of having discovered your courses and material as well as the YouTube work of recordings. You have a calm and pleasant way of teaching.
Ron writes, "Hi Vidas and Ausra, thank you guys. What a wonderful response to my email note to you. You've got me right, and I feel you understand my level of playing. Yes, at home and lucky that I have an organ for that reason. I am paying attention to this, and I am going to try this haha no longer secret model. Yes, and I love Cesar Frank too. What is very nice about your blog podcast is that Ausra and Vidas are like a Socratic dialogue, and by bouncing things off of each other, so much more information comes out and is expressed. Your comments contain a wealth of information and understanding. I really appreciate this. It is very inspiring and will keep us moving forward.
Would you like to receive the same or even better results that our students are getting? If so, join them at organduo.lt/total-organist. And of course, you will get the first month free too. You can cancel anytime.
Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to receive free updates of this blog, make sure you do that at organduo.lt. By subscribing, you will also receive free video, how to master any organ composition and 10-day organ playing mini course.
This was Vidas.
And Ausra from Secrets of Organ Playing.
And remember, when you practice,
Miracles happen.